مرحبا بكم جميعا وحياكم الله في هذه الورشة التفاعلية. سعداء جدا بمشاركتكم في برنامجنا التدريبي الذي ننظمه في هيئة أبو ظبي للطفولة المبكرة بالتعاون مع شركائنا. نسعى في هيئة أبو ظبي للطفولة المبكرة إلى دعم مسيرة التنمية الشاملة للأطفال وتعزيز رفاهيتهم منذ فترة الحمل وحتى سن الثامنة، وضمان نموهم في بيئة داعمة وآمنة وتعزز وصولهم لموارد وأدوات إبداعية ومبتكرة، وحصولهم على خدمات متكاملة وذات جودة عالية تساهم في تطوير مهاراتهم وتحسين قدراتهم. لذلك نحن حريصين على تمكين شركائنا وتعزيز قدراتهم لدعم التنمية الشاملة للطفل. هذا البرنامج تم تصميمه خصيصا للعاملين في قطاع التعليم المبكر والحضانات بهدف إثراء خبراتكم وتنمية مهاراتكم في مجالات الطفولة المبكرة وصولا لتحسين جودة التعليم وتحقيق رفاهية أحبتنا الأطفال من خلال التركيز على 4 مجالات رئيسية هي الصحة والتغذية، حماية الطفل، الدعم الأسري، إلى جانب الرعاية والتعليم المبكرين. نتمنى لكم مشاركة ممتعة ومفيدة ومداخلات ثرية وقيمة، ونتطلع للالتقاء بكم مجددا في برامجنا المستقبلية. نشكركم مرة أخرى على حضوركم ومشاركتكم، ونثمن لكم جهودكم في تنمية ورعاية أحبتنا الأطفال.
To everybody tonight about this. Before we get started, as Rafi's just mentioned, there is an opportunity at the end to ask any questions. So please do make a note of anything that you have, and we'll do our best to get through as many questions as we can at the end of this evening. Also, this session, we're going to try and make it a little bit more interactive. So as we go, there will be a number of questions that I'll be asking of you. And at the top of your screens, there is a Q&A button. So if when we're going through and we're asking for participation, please do put any comments that you have in there, and we will do our very best to respond to them as we go throughout every part of the session. So to begin with, I'd like to have an idea of what people would like to get out of this evening's session. So if you wouldn't mind, into that Q&A bar right at the top of your screen, give me some of your thoughts of what you think you would like to have included in the session. If we're unable to cover them tonight, perhaps we might be allowed to do another session, and it will just give us a good idea of areas that you would like us to have a think about. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to put your thoughts into that Q&A at the top of the screen, please.
While everybody's putting their thoughts in, those who are raising your hand, it'd be better if you could just type in a question in the Q&A or at the private chat so we can answer them for you.
Yeah, it's much easier for us if you can pop it into there for us. So somebody's come in and they've said that they'd like some more information on managing team morale. I would imagine at the moment that's very reflective of the atmosphere in all of our nurseries, particularly with the current restrictions that we're facing with COVID-19. And we've got difficult parents as well. Yet more people wanting things on staff well-being. I think, again, very reflective of what we're experiencing at the moment. So that's all good and very relevant. It's something for us to keep in mind, Rafi. Okay, so let's move. Oh, hold on, we've got something else. Managing a team. Hopefully we'll be able to cover a little bit of that tonight for you. And managing different people and different personalities, that's something we'll certainly try and have a little look at as we go tonight. So let's have a look and get started then. So tonight's session, we are going to look at the differences between leadership and management. I think it's really, really important that we identify that there are differences and how those differences can appear to the teams that you manage and other stakeholders. We're going to talk a little bit about vision, because vision and goals are very, very important. And I think, again, COVID-19 has put a bit of a magnifying glass on that for everybody at the moment. I think it's important that we look at types of leadership so that you understand that there are different types, and perhaps identify where you are as a leader. And then we're going to have a look at how you can support team growth whilst leading and managing a team. And then we're going to have a little bit of a reflection. I think being a reflective leader is extremely important. Again, it's never been more important than it currently is. So we'll try and have a little walk through all of that tonight. By the end of the session, I'm hoping that you'll be more confident in your role, that you have a better understanding of yourself and who you are as a leader, and that you're able to reflect over different areas. Really, I want tonight to kind of sow seeds for people so that they go away and have a think about areas that perhaps they haven't thought about before, or areas they haven't visited for a while. I want you to think about vision and what it means to you as an individual and to your setting. And one key factor is how you can be a bit more supportive as a leader at the moment. And again, well-being and staff morale, that's hugely important for everybody. So let's get started then. So this sentence, I think, is really, really important. A good leader should always, and the way that you finish that sentence often says a lot about the kind of leader that you are, or the kind of setting that you're in. And I actually think that the answers are going to be different now, perhaps, than they would have been before we encountered COVID-19. I think we've had to evolve substantially in our leadership manners and the way in which we operate. So I'll give you a few minutes, and if you could go into that Q&A at the top and finish that sentence for me. A good leader should always, what do you think they should always? Somebody's come straight in, so you're on the ball for this one. So you think they should be empathetic. I think that's again a very, very good reflection of where we are at the moment, isn't it? Listening to their team, yep, be a good listener, that's important. Be there for their team. I think when we say being there for our team, we perhaps need to drill that down a little bit more. What's it going to be like to be there for our team? Do we just need to be present, or is there more to it? Role modeling, I think role modeling is really important at the moment. Wow, there's answers flying in. Should be great enough to make future leaders. Yes, that's really, really important that we're there and that we're planning and looking at who could perhaps step up in the future into different leadership roles. Motivate, yep, really important. Create a child-centered environment, yep. Be attentive, I think that's always a good one, isn't it? And one that I think is really important is to be inspirational. I think it's hard to ask people to do that all day, every day. But I do think that you do need to have elements of being inspiring for your team. Somebody's written that they need to be smart and ready. Yeah, again, agreed. It's good to be smart and ready. Listening to opinions. There's lots and lots of opinions going on. So lots and lots there to think about. So you've all got a really good idea. What's not come up though, and I thought somebody would have put it by now, would be they need to have a good sense of humour. Because I think that's something that often we really, really do need to have, don't we? I think having a good sense of humour gets us through most days, especially at the moment. Believe in their team. Yes, believing in your team is critical, isn't it? Because that's how you kind of keep them fired up and keep them going, by showing that you have belief. Be respectful of your team. Yep. Positive culture. Collaborative. Wow, it's on fire. Fantastic. So you all have a good idea of what a good leader should be. So that's really, really an important start to things. So let's get started then and have a think about vision. Vision is the ability that you have as a leader to think or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. That's the textbook definition. But I actually think that we need to consider other definitions, perhaps less official definitions. So unofficially, I think it's the opportunity for you to look at how you can be outstanding. And I think as nursery leaders, we get a really good opportunity to try and identify where we want to go. And again, we've had a little bit of a blip at the moment. Perhaps we've been thrown off our original course, but hopefully over the coming months, we'll be able to get back on track again. I think we also need to see our vision as setting an improved place. Where do we want to take our setting to? Where do we want to take our team to? What do we want to achieve? What's our end result? And everything that we do should be underpinned by the vision that we have for our settings, for our team, and also for ourselves in a way. And we need to look at how we can motivate them towards that vision. So those are all really, really important skills for us as leaders to kind of hone as we go. So then the next thing I think we need to think about is, why is vision important? So often in settings, and it's quite common, that most setting managers and leaders will actually inherit the vision of their setting. It's very unusual that you would go in and one of the first tasks you'd be asked to complete is to come up with a vision. Usually you hit the ground running and there's so many things going on that the vision is something that comes later on. But actually, really, it should be one of the first jobs when you take a new role on, is that you actually define what you want from the role that you have in your setting and what you want from your team. It's often harder if you're part of a bigger group, because you usually have a vision that's kind of group wide, or it might be an international vision. But I still think there's room for you to adopt it and make it your own. So interpret it and look at how you want it to be something that you and your team can own, I suppose, take the ownership of as a setting. Your vision isn't something you should take lightly, because this is something that as a team you should be able to live every day. So it needs to be something that you're committed to and that you truly believe in. Otherwise, it's just words on paper, really. And when you come to put your vision together, if you're starting from scratch, try to involve your team as much as possible. Ask them to brainstorm ideas, and I'll give you some ideas shortly as to how you can do that. If it's something that's been thrown onto you, as in it's part of a much bigger group, then take the values that you have and break them down and see how you could possibly interpret those and make them your own and bring ownership to them, because every branch of a larger group is very individual. So again, look at something that makes you stand out and something that makes you unique in your branch. And I think that's really quite important to do. I often refer to a vision as the bridge. It's the bridge between the current, what's going on in your setting currently, and the future that you want to achieve. So the vision is the bridge that's going to get you there. It's going to be what carries you forward. And when you think of writing it, it also has to have a really strong element of challenge to it. It needs to actually drive your team to think outside of the box. It shouldn't be something that's really easily achievable for everybody, because then it's just a bit too easy. And we're all about challenging and upskilling and improving the quality in our setting, and actually the vision will underpin a lot of that for you. So it's all very well wanting to have a vision, but how can you go about working on something like this with your team? So one suggestion I have for you is that you go into a staff meeting and you say to your team, I want you to imagine that you have a time capsule and we're about to transport ourselves into the future. And as you go into the future, what I want you to do is I want you to think about moving around the nursery and how do you want the nursery to feel? Once you walk in the door, what should your experience be? What's going to matter to you as a person as you enter your setting? What do you think would matter to a child? What would matter to a staff member? What would matter to a parent? I would also say to you, what would matter to a government inspector when they come in? I think those are really important things to take on. And as they move through the building, what are they seeing? What are they hearing? And get everybody to write down their different notes and perhaps share them. If you can do some mind mapping, that would be really, really good. I know it's really hard to do it on Zoom at the moment and other online channels, but perhaps somebody could scribe it all down for you and then you could share it within your group. As you wander around, ask them to have a look and see what the staff in the nursery are actually doing. What's the pedagogy like in that nursery? What are the children doing? Which I think is a really, really important question as you go. How are the staff interacting with the children that are in that setting? And when the parents are in the setting, the other kind of really important aspect is how are the staff interacting with each other? Because their involvement is going to be hugely beneficial on scoping out where they're going to actually want to go in the future. And as you go, how do you feel about the experience and how would they feel about coming to work in a setting like that? And those, I think, are really good starting points for you when you start to build your vision and include your team in it. Again, if you have a vision that's already established, it may be very much a case of speaking to your team in line with that vision. So if this is our vision, what would that look like as we're wandering around our setting? How would it make us unique? And again, there's still room even if you have inherited a big brand vision to do that. So my next challenge for you is to take a few minutes and write down for yourself 5 to 10 keywords or phrases that you truly believe are important to have as part of a vision for your setting. And this is where you need to start to take control of what you think the vision should be. And obviously you're going to share this with your staff and have their input, but importantly, you need to start by scaffolding and giving a framework to that vision. So have a quick few minutes and have a think and jot down some things. And then in a minute, I'm going to ask everybody to perhaps share those with us. So you don't need to share these, but if anybody has any that they would like to share with us, please just pop them in. Oh, goodness, everybody's ready. Handling situations politely, that's a really, really good starting point, yep. Work as a team, collaboration, a friendly environment. So what I would say to you is if you think a friendly environment, please break that down into smaller chunks. What does a friendly environment look like? So when you go back to your staff meeting, ask them those kind of questions. Somebody's written respecting each other. Again, very important, but what will that look like as you're wandering around? What does teamwork look like as you're wandering around? Again, get more and more clarification. A home from home. Again, a really nice idea, but what's that going to look like in your setting? I want you to start thinking as you have these areas coming in, how this will transform into your practice. Cooperation, sharing opinions, a safe place, freedom. I think those are all brilliant. A positive environment, a holistically developmental environment, fabulous, inclusive, yes, safe, accessible, child at the center. Yep, these are all brilliant, and these are really good starts for your vision. And again, you just need to look at how you could break that down and what that could look like in practice for everybody. So it looks like everybody's got a good starting point for their next team meeting. Somebody's put happiness, and I think that's really nice. It should be a happy place. We should actually want to come to work and interact with those children and parents, because it should be a very positive atmosphere. So you've got a really good starting point there with your words. That's great. So now you've got your own set of words, and either you can think about it now or again at the end of your team meeting. Sit down and consider, do they actually look like a better future for your setting? Are they going to be a new way forward? Is it something that will improve the quality? Will it be implementing new standards for your setting? Do you think that your team will be happy as you move forward? Are you thinking that these are going to be something that are achievable for your team? Are they motivational? Because it has to motivate your team to want to achieve this vision. And your vision won't be static. What happens quite a lot in nurseries is that you'll put a vision in place and then it never ever gets reviewed and it never ever gets changed. And as you change as a setting, as your team changes, the children change, it may be that that vision needs to change too. So it may be that you need to go back and reflect on it again and again. But most importantly, you need to make sure that it does highlight the values and the cultures of the families and the children and your staff indeed that are in that setting. So that's really, really important for everybody to consider. Once you've left this session, I'm really hoping that you are going to go and work with your team and either break down the vision that you have or implement a new vision perhaps and start to build that new vision for you. As you go though, you do need to be asking yourself, is it realistic? It's no good putting together a vision that's full of keywords and you think it's really, really the way ahead and then actually you can't get there. And that's important. It has to be something that you can manage and you can break it down into small, manageable steps so that you can actually achieve it. And once you've achieved it, then you can go ahead and set the next part of your vision and move forward into achieving the next part. Couple of warnings though, I would say, don't fall into some traps. So often, I used to be very privileged to be able to go and look around quite a lot of nurseries and work with an awful lot of nursery staff. And one of the things that I would wander around and I would read the vision, and often what I would see in the setting was not the vision in action. So make sure that when you put your vision together, as you wander around your setting, you can see it come to life. And I think that's a hugely important part of your vision. It should be everywhere. You should be able to see it from the moment you walk in. So if you're going to tell me that your setting is a welcoming environment, I should walk in and the people on the front desk should know the children, the parents by name. They should know if grandma's come to visit or if there's a new baby in the family. Those are the kind of questions that should be being asked of a morning time. There should be lots of manners, big smiles, and that should be the key part of going into your setting. What you don't want to do is say that you're a welcoming setting and then everybody, as you encounter them, isn't happy and they don't know anybody. So just think about how you could live that vision quite easily. Also make sure that your vision is very visual within the setting. You don't want people to not be able to identify what it is. So again, putting up signs about it, making it so it's visually depicted on different posters and in your staff handbook, in your parent handbook, and is it on your website, so that everybody understands what it is that you're working towards achieving. And again, it should also be visible in your interactions. Like we just said, if you're welcoming, there should be lots of smiles and happy faces. And those are really, really important. There is a huge list there, but the best advice I can give you is take a walk around your setting and see if you can really see it come to life. So that concludes our section on vision, and we're now going to move on and we're going to have a look at what leadership means to you. And it means different things to different people. So I think as we walk through the session, you'll see, we'll take a look at what it means to different people, why it means different things, and then we'll have a look at what it really means to you. So, do you believe that leadership is the art of motivating people towards achieving a common goal? And I think that's quite important. We are a motivating factor, and that we need to work towards achieving whatever goals we've set ourselves as individuals and as a nursery. And it's also about being quite influential, because people do listen when we speak. So we need to make sure that when we are speaking, what we're saying is actually going to be effective, efficient, and that we're giving the best information that we can. I think also something to always think about is that if you are a really good leader, you don't leave people behind. Your job is to think about how you can move everybody on together as a team, and how you can make sure that you support those who are perhaps not so strong in your team, because ultimately you usually are only as good as your weakest member. So it really is about making sure that you upskill people. And it's your role to take the initiative in doing that and make sure that you give them the strength to go on. Sometimes it's about giving them confidence to move on as well. So there's two pictures on the left-hand side of the screen there. I think these are really good things just to keep in mind during the day when you're at work. So a manager stands on the top of that huge piece of concrete and tells everybody what to do, whereas the leader actually gets down at the front and shows everybody what to do. And I think that to me, just keep it at the back of your mind. And when you're doing jobs, just think about which one are you? Are you the person that's issuing the orders? Or are you the person that's actually actively involved and leading the way? Because there is a huge difference. If you look at the chart there, managers really are about policies and procedures, making sure that they get them done, roles and responsibilities. Whereas a leader will always look at you in terms of what's needed, what does the company need, and how can you take that role within it. Manager, they are the authority, whereas a leader will act as an authoritative individual. Again, very, very different roles. The manager will circulate clear targets, whereas a leader, as we've just talked about, will spread the going to achieve targets and how they'll strategize. Leaders build trust and they promote the growth of their team members, whereas a manager is more interested in the achievements and the resources that are available. So as you can see, there's really clear differences as you work through the table. I'm not going to go all through the table, it's there for you to read, but you can see there are substantial differences. Now, my question to you tonight is it natural? As you can see, that lady at the bottom there has just had a new leader. She's just given birth to a leader. Does that really happen? Are people naturally leaders? Or do you think you grow into that role? You know, is it something that the environment around brings you to do? So often people are given the role or the title or the badge, and they think that automatically that makes them a leader, and actually none of those things make you a leader. It really is the fact that you are showing that you can do the job and that you have the respect of your team, and respect takes time to achieve. It doesn't happen overnight. So think about how you're leading. Did you naturally do it? So it's really hard to naturally step into a leadership role. Often it takes years and years and years of practice and experience, and you build up the different areas that you can work in and the ways in which you do things. So again, something to ponder. And look at your team. In your team, are there natural leaders, or are there people that are trying to step up and they need some extra help there? Very, very different, again, types of thing. So leadership here refers to the process of influencing the behavior of people. And again, we inspire people to do things in certain ways. And we look at how we can get them to achieve things and get the best out of the team that we have. Management is much more about the organizational process. I think leadership tends to be much more big picture visionary, whereas the manager tends to be much better at breaking it down into those smaller tasks and just achieving them step by step. Again, it depends on your mindset, I suppose, on where you are with those. Now, Rafi, are we ready for the next slide, which is a poll on, and I'm going to ask you to vote on what you think you are at the moment.
We are ready.
Do I need to turn slide, or do you do something here?
No. Just go on to the next slide and I will have the poll up.
There we go. Brilliant. Thank you. So at the moment, I would like you to vote to tell me, please, do you think you are a leader now? Do you think you're a leader in the making? Do you feel that in the role that you have at the moment, you're more of a manager? Or do you feel that you're a combination of a leader and a manager? So I'm just going to give you a few minutes there to have a quick vote.
I have missed the polls since our last sessions.
I've missed doing polls with you as well, Rafi. You've no idea. I'm excited to see what the results of this one are, I have to say. I think I'm going to find this very interesting. I think it'll be interesting for all of us to see how things are at the moment for everybody. Perhaps before COVID, you might have felt you were more of a leader, but at the moment you feel you're more of a manager. That would be an interesting one. But probably quite believable at the moment as well, I think. How are we doing, Rafi? What percentage are we at?
We are at 50% now, but the votes are faster than when we were doing the mandatory training. I think having the nurseries open has made people, more interested in attending sessions.
I'm not surprised. I'm very pleased to be open and have children back again. I think everybody that does the job that we do miss the children and the families.
Okay. I think, okay, wait, there's more votes coming in.
Brilliant. If you haven't voted, please can you quickly vote for us so that we can move towards seeing the results.
I think the results might surprise you. Okay, ending poll.
Take it away, Rafi.
Now, and sharing the results.
Wow. Okay. Yes, I'm a bit surprised. I'm pleased to see that people feel they're leaders in the making. I think that's important. I'd love to take this another step further, but I think Rafi would kill me if I tried to add another poll. I'd love to know why you think you're a leader in the making. Has that changed? Is this to do with COVID, perhaps? I don't know. And some people feel they're a combination. That's really interesting. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. Thank you so much, Rafi.
My pleasure.
So let's start with leadership. There's lots and lots of different types of leadership, and we've already talked about this. And often the type of leader that you are depends on the outcome that you wish to achieve. So if you look, there's some definitions of leaders here. The first one is from the British military. And I think this is very interesting. It's getting someone to do what you want them to do, even if they don't want to do it. So again, going into situations where people may not want to do what you want them to do, but they have to do it anyway. Very, very much authoritarian style of doing things. Then we have President Dwight Eisenhower. Again, very interesting. Getting someone to want to do what you want them to do. And I think we spend a lot of our days sometimes very much on that train of thought there, getting people to do what we want them to do. Moving on to somebody that's Steve Jobs, obviously very innovative. And he believes that innovation is what distinguishes between a leader and a follower. So how innovative are you as a leader? Is it something that comes naturally, or do you have to take time to do it? Then I've picked a couple of authors here, and they had quite different opinions, I felt. So the pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, but the leader adjusts the sails. And again, I think we've very much shown as a group over the last few months that we're very, very good at adjusting sails and keeping our businesses going forward. So that's why that one's there. And then the final quote, leadership involves finding a parade and getting to the front of it. Not sure I agree with John Naisbitt there. I think it's more than just standing at the front of a parade. I do think that we need to think long and hard about how we achieve a leadership role in terms of actually being the person that the team needs us to be. So Rafi, we're going to move on now. We've got many different types of leadership, and I'm just going to take you through some different kinds of leadership. And as I talk you through these, I'd really like you to have a reflection on whether you think I'm talking about perhaps the leadership style that you have. So we're going to start off with a democratic leader. And their style is really a bit of a combination of two styles. A little bit of autocratic leadership in a democratic leader, and then a bit of a laissez-faire leadership style as well. When they're doing what they do, they always ask for feedback from their teams. They're always asking for input before they make a decision. But they don't always take that feedback. Sometimes they actually have to go with what they feel is the best option for everybody. When you're a leader that has that kind of style, you would often like staff meetings and group discussions. You like to have an opportunity to go through what you're planning to do and get input from the team members. You like to share lots and lots of information with everybody and tell them what's going on and then get their involvement in decision-making process. You like it when people collaborate within your team. You like the sharing of ideas. As a person, you're quite rational. You're usually pretty flexible, and you're very good at mediation because you're used to kind of sitting in meetings and moving things around. So have a think, is that you? Have I just described you? Or are you more authoritarian? Do you actually tell people what to do? Do you go in, it's more of a military style? And to be this kind of leader, you're very self-confident. You're usually extremely self-motivated. You've got good communication. But one of the key determinants here is that you love to follow rules. You're often a very dependable person. You like a very structured environment. You like lots of policies and procedures, and you like everybody to know where they stand and know what their roles are. And you believe strongly in a supervised environment. So for me, this is kind of micromanaging people. You like to be on top of everybody and know what everybody's doing. So is that a description of you, perhaps? Or are you more of the laissez-faire approach, which literally really means laid back? You don't really want to spend time micromanaging people. You're much more interested in delegating. Big believer in delegation. Big believer in letting people have freedom of choice. You're always very good at making sure that they have the resources that they need, and let them go for it. If you need to, you can gain back some control, and you'll often go and give some constructive feedback if you feel that it's actually required in a different situation. You like to foster kind of qualities of leadership within your team. So you might have sub-leadership roles underneath you, like a deputy director or something, so that you've given a bit more delegation in roles there. And you like to have a pretty autonomous environment. So you like people to work off their own backs and go and get jobs done. So again, do you think that's describing you? Have a think about that. The fourth kind that we're going to have a brief look at is the transformational leader. They like to have a very much a mutual respect within the different members of their team. Having respect for each other is really important. They're very, very encouraging as a leader. They strongly believe in inspiring people to achieve their goals. This type of leadership is very much about the big picture, seeing the bigger view of everything. They're not necessarily always so good at seeing the smaller parts that make up that big picture. They like to challenge their team intellectually. It's really important that they keep their team always on their feet and challenged. Very creative as a leader, and they have really good understandings of what their company needs and how they're going to achieve those needs. So again, that perhaps is you that I've described. Or do you think perhaps your style is more transactional? So transactional leaders is often focused hugely on performance, and they like to keep things going at quite a strong pace. It's really important to them that they have a strong corporate structure, so they have that really strong org chart and everybody knows their roles and responsibilities. Often they can be caught micromanaging people. They don't usually question authority. They're pretty pragmatic as people, but they really, really do like it when people achieve goals that have been set for them. Also, this type of leadership tends to be quite reactionary. So something will happen and then they'll problem solve to it. They don't usually think about things before they happen and proactively prevent a problem from occurring. So that's that style. The sixth style that I'm going to cover today is coaching. That's somebody who looks at strengths and weaknesses and carries out kind of that quick assessment of their team and looks at how they can improve each individual with their own set of SMART goals. If you're this kind of leader, you're often extremely supportive. You know your teams very, very well. You know what they need, and you know where you want to take them to. They're very, very good at giving guidance. They don't tend to issue orders. They guide you as to what they want you to see. They put a huge emphasis on growing you as an individual. So if your team members, you would be looking at growing your team and seeing how you can achieve the very, very best from them. When you talk to people, you'll ask extremely guided questions. And you're very, very conscious about getting individuals to problem solve for themselves. So you'll have coaching conversations with them so that they can actually find their own answers. And you're extremely self-aware of who you are as an individual. So again, perhaps that's you. I don't know, we'll find out in a minute. And the final kind that we're going to look at today is the bureaucratic leadership style. Very, very similar to autocratic leaders. These kind of people love the paperwork, the hierarchy, people having set responsibilities and carrying those out. People that are these kind of leaders are usually very detail focused. It's really, really important. Getting tasks completed to a high level and making sure every detail is covered. They really like to have rules and regulations in the workplace. They have an extremely strong work ethic, so that's where they really perform, but extremely strong-willed and can actually be quite stubborn. Very, very committed and loyal to the organization. Again, that's quite a positive thing to have, and they can be really, really self-disciplined. So lots and lots of different types there. You've got 6 or 7 different leadership types. So the first question I have for you, if Rafi is ready, we've got another quick poll for you. Are you ready, Rafi?
Yes.
So my next question is, which one of those leadership styles do you feel is best? Do you think it's best to be democratic, autocratic, laissez-faire, transformational, transactional, leadership coach style, or bureaucratic leadership? Can you please vote now? So which do you think is best? If you had to be led by somebody, which one of those types of leadership would you want to be led by?
We're at 50%.
Wow, we're quick tonight on the trigger finger.
It's either because everyone's excited with the training or they just want to get it over with and go to bed. So
Don't say that, Rafi. It's very exciting, educational leadership. It's one of my favorite topics.
64%. I love the answers from this survey.
Okay, I can't wait to see what they think is best. And again, it could really be that what's currently best in people's minds has changed because of COVID. You know, so much has impacted how we are as educational leadership. So I think, you know, wow. Yes, that is different. You could have warned me, Rafi. Wow. Coaching leadership. I think at the moment, because of the way morale is in the settings, I think that's why we're seeing a lot of coach style leadership. But democratic, I'm really not surprised on that one at all. Transformational, yep, again, not surprised to see those being quite high up. But that's good. Thank you very much, Rafi. We've got another quick poll for you. So this first poll was looking at what you think is best. The next poll that I have for you is which do you think you are? So at the moment, in your settings, what type of leadership do you believe you are, what style are you using, I suppose? Which one is you at the moment? Let's see how they compare.
And don't worry, we just have one more or 15 more polls after this. So nothing.
It's only that Rafi, behave. Behave. I always find this really interesting, and particularly at the moment, I think if we'd have done this poll 18 months ago, perhaps we would have seen slightly different results. I might be wrong, but I think we probably would have. I don't think coaching would have been so high particularly. I think we're seeing a lot of that because of the well-being that we know we need to be aware of with our staff teams and our families at the moment. How are we doing on those figures, Rafi?
Sorry, 62%. I keep muting my mic because my cat thinks it's a perfect idea to come and jump on my keyboard and meow at everyone. So.
Oh dear. Yeah, so again, we're seeing similar results, which again is interesting. So thank you very much. That was really good. Good to see democratic is one of the top ones there again with coaching. So this is the final poll of the evening, I promise. So my next question to you is, we've had a little look tonight at leadership styles. And do you think it's sometimes helpful to reflect on the leadership style that you have? Do you think it's something that as you go, you should perhaps take time, maybe every few months, just to reflect on the styles that you're using and how you're using those in your setting? Rafi, are you ready? There we go, nice and easy, only 3 answers. Do you think it's helpful to reflect, not helpful to reflect, or you're undecided as of yet? This should be nice and quick with only 3 options, Rafi.
This one was very fast. We're at 71%.
See, we've got quicker as the evening's gone on. We were warming up. The results are in. Let's have a look. Very helpful. Brilliant. That's what I was hoping everybody was going to say. I think it's something that we should do regularly. I know you have so many things to think about every day of the week. But if you have a quiet moment, perhaps as you're driving home, it's something just to reflect on and have a think about. So we've had a look at vision, we've had a look at leadership styles. Now we're going to drill it down a little bit further. We're going to have a look at you as a leader. So I want you to start thinking about now, what's important to you as an early years leader? What matters and what doesn't matter? What are you passionate about? What really is important to you? And you know, it's really at the core of everything that you believe. As a person, what are you hoping to achieve? And what does that mean personally and professionally to you? Are there personal achievements that you need to build into the next few years as well that you want to make sure that you complete? And as you start to reflect on who you are, it will start to make you think as well about your strengths and weaknesses and how you should be using all of those and building those into that plan that you have for yourself for the next few years. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a big believer in having a 5-year plan, and that should also cover your personal and your professional life. And then within that plan, you build in the strengths and weaknesses and any gaps that you have that you feel that you need to kind of add on to and bridge in a way. What I would say to you is consider taking some time with a peer. Perhaps you work in a bigger group and you can talk to somebody, or perhaps if you're working in a standalone nursery, I know there's loads of groups out there at the moment that you perhaps go and discuss this with and talk about who you are as a leader and what you want to achieve and get feedback from other people as well. It's really important that it's quite lonely to be a leader sometimes. So it is quite important that you do take time to go and talk to other people and get their feedback. As you start to identify things, you're going to very quickly believe that even leaders can't be good at everything. Okay? And even if you're the best leader out there, you just can't do it all and you can't be good at everything. So it's important to keep that at the back of your mind as well. And as you take time to reflect, start to build a picture of the person that you're working towards being in the next few years. How are you going to be able to support and develop those strengths? Do you need to do some more training? Is it professional development? Is it a case of reading something? How are you going to bridge those gaps that you have? Perhaps it's a case of talking to somebody that might be able to help you, somebody that's a mentor. And that's always good as well. Something else I think that's always interesting is talking to your staff and getting a different view of you. What do they feel that you could actually work on and improve? And again, that's part of a 360 review, that you get their feedback and that you can then build that into a picture of where you move and how you move forward. But what I wanted to do today is I just wanted to cover a few areas of areas that you may think you would like to work on as a person. And these are quite common areas for everybody. So the first one I looked at was time management. As leaders, having time is always very challenging. When we walk into the setting, we're often at everybody's beck and call. So managing our own day-to-day schedule is often really, really challenging. So what could you do differently to manage your time? I know that some people I work with have an Outlook calendar, and that helps them stay focused. They build into that calendar time to answer emails, and they build into that calendar time to work on certain projects. So literally, when people come to you, you can say, I'm really sorry, I've got this time scheduled for a certain specific task. You may want to set a to-do list at the beginning of the day and slowly work through it. You may want to think about how you could prioritize what you've got as jobs. There's that lovely grid that says these things are important and they're urgent, and these things are important but not urgent. And then you've got the things that are not so important that you need to prioritize around. So perhaps you need something like that. At the end of a week, if you haven't completed the tasks that you set out to do, have a think about why you haven't completed them. Is there something that you could do differently that might help you in the following week to get all of your tasks done? What I would say, and something I know that we're notoriously bad for, I know I'm notoriously bad at this, is building in time for you. And at the moment, this really is important as well. You need to make sure that you have a work-life balance. You don't want to burn out, and you're no use to your team or your family if you've burnt out. So take time to build into your schedule when you're going to be uncontactable to your team and when you're going to completely walk off the grid so that you can have time for you and your family. So have a think about how you're managing time. Are you happy with what you've got at the moment, or do you still feel that you could do better? And there's lots and lots of information out there on time management. So take an hour and have a look at what you could do to improve it. And at the end of the day, we're all looking to be effective and efficient. So if there's something you could do better, now's the time to have a think about it. Something else to think about is the way in which we plan our days and the planning that we do with our staff members. So I had a look at this as well. Often we overlook types of planning that we perhaps should have. For example, do you plan for your meetings? Because so often people go into a staff meeting with no clear objective of what they wish to achieve, and the staff meeting goes on and on and on. Whereas if you went in with a clear plan of what you wanted to discuss, it would cut your staff meeting down substantially. If you're going to do that with a staff meeting, make sure you share that agenda so everybody knows what's going to be discussed and comes ready to have those conversations with you. Make sure that you set time aside for staff meetings, because that shows everybody how important that part of the week is. And once you've had a staff meeting, make sure you share minute notes so that people who were unable to attend take responsibility for catching up. Again, the last thing you want in your day is to go and talk to somebody and catch them up. It really is, it's a complete waste of your time in some ways, whereas they could just read through the minutes and they could actually catch up. And if there's any questions that they have, then they can come and find you. And also make sure that as a team, you've planned for the year ahead. I know in the last few months, it's probably been a bit more challenging for everybody. But I think what you do need to do now that we're kind of coming through this a little bit more is to take time, sit down, do a plan for the next year with your team, ask for their input, look at what's realistic, and at least gives you a point that you started from, and it's something that can evolve as you go. Another area that I think perhaps you may wish to consider is rehearsing things. Now, I say this because I think so often we go into things and we haven't actually thought them through properly. And actually, if we would just take a few more minutes and actually go through things, then we would have a better understanding of what outcomes we were going to receive. When I talk about this, I'm usually talking in regards to difficult conversations. So if, for example, you have a parent that's complaining, before you go and address that complaint, think of all the different outcomes that could happen and how you would manage each of those so that you're actually not hit and surprised by the outcome. You've already got a plan in place of what you would do in that situation. And that happens for multiple stakeholders, doesn't it? It could be parents, it could be staff, it could be volunteers, it could be the government that's coming in to talk to us. So in any of those situations, make sure you've rehearsed outcomes. Think about what you would say and do and the way that you'll react, because often that will make you a lot calmer and feel a lot more in control of a situation if you've got multiple responses ready. There is nothing worse than being overwhelmed because you're underprepared for a situation that you're going to encounter. So take time out, and sometimes I'm a big believer in the 24-hour rule. Sometimes you need 24 hours to process and think about that situation. So don't be in a rush to respond. Give yourself a little bit of time and a bit of distance, and often you'll come up with a really good way of responding, perhaps to that difficult conversation or complaint. Something else I think we need to think about is being assertive. I think often that comes down to confidence. I think if you're a new leader, being assertive can be very difficult. But I think as you get more and more experienced in the leadership role, it becomes a little bit easier. But there'll still be things that will throw you off guard. There are 3 golden rules to being assertive. And the first one is to look and sound confident. So even if inside you're like jelly, Outside, you need to try really, really hard to look and sound confident. The second golden rule is that you need to use assertive language. So again, it comes back to rehearsing really, doesn't it? If you have that opportunity to think about the outcomes, then you can think about the kinds of language that you would use so that you can sound assertive. So that uses often the word I feel, I think, I need. And then you're owning that conversation. You're taking control of where you stand in things. And again, that's a very important place for you to be. The third golden rule is that you see any situation as a problem which needs to be resolved by joint agreement. So take time to ensure that you have come to an agreement with everybody and that you have been firm on where you're standing. So I want to start introducing loose parts to play to the classroom, for example. What do you think? You've already said where you stand on things. You want to do it. That's a non-negotiable. What you are interested is everybody's opinion. So that's being assertive. The next area is making a request. Again, we're often very, very, we don't like to go and make requests. We try and do so many things ourselves, and often we don't feel so confident to go and ask things of other people. So for example, if you feel that you have to do this, go and be honest and ask directly. Don't kind of beat around the bush and take the conversation in different directions. Go in and say, look, this is what I need. And again, you've been very clear about it and you're very exact in what you want. Don't say, oh, I think, you know, it would be really good if, a very straight conversation. Avoid pleading with anybody and emotional blackmail. I think it's really, really important that when you go in, you don't offer something as a sweetener, you just come right out and say it. And often people will really appreciate the directness. Something that also will put you in a slightly weaker position is if you apologize. I'm really sorry, I've got to ask you this. Why are you sorry? You need to ask it. You have to just go ahead and do what you need to do. So don't apologize if what you're asking is fair and it's an honest request, something that really is needed. Before you go and ask somebody, make sure that you're very clear in your mind as to whether what you're asking is reasonable or not. Again, if it's not reasonable to ask it, should you be asking it? If it is, then that's perfectly acceptable to go ahead and do it, and again, be confident in doing it. But also be ready for somebody to say no, because ultimately everybody has a right to say no. So it is important that, you know, you could go in and say, look, I need to move your leave, and they'll just go, no. So again, that's perfectly acceptable. And then the next conversation has to be about how you can work around that situation. And as we kind of move through a little bit more, I want to also say to leadership in early years at the moment that you can say no. So often we take more and more on at the moment, but actually you're very much within your rights to say no. And the other thing is that you can actually say, I don't know, because we don't have all the answers and we can't be expected to have all the answers. If you don't know the answer, it's often good to go and say, look, I don't have that information right now, but I can go and find it for you. Or could we go and find the information together? So that at least then, you know, you're human, you can't know everything, but you are going to go and try and help by getting the information that you need. If you are going to say no to something, make sure you keep your request short. So no, you know, you don't need to explain yourself to people. You can give a very quick explanation. I'm really sorry, I can't do that, and move on. Be honest, and by saying or implying yes or maybe when actually you mean no is not a really good way forward. Or don't say, you know, I think I can do it when actually you know you can't. Be honest. No, I'm really sorry, it doesn't work for me right now. If you're going to have an honest reaction, make sure that you give options. So by that I mean, if you're asked to attend something but it falls on the same evening as your son's birthday, say, you know, if it was next week, I would have no issue in doing it, but I'm really sorry, I've got another commitment tonight. So again, all of those things, just making sure that you're managing that conversation, that communication really clearly. At the moment, we're often giving lots and lots of feedback. We're keeping our team really pumped up at the moment, aren't we? And I think it's important that we do go and give feedback regularly, and that could be either really positive feedback or it could be constructive feedback. Make sure that when you're giving feedback, you're focusing on what you're commenting on and not the person. If you have to go and say something that's perhaps not such positive feedback, make sure that you're doing it because of the area that you're commenting on and not because a grudge is being held or something. Be very specific when you give feedback. I really like the way that you've done that display. I like the way that you've done X, Y, and Z. And that's really, really important. When you give the feedback, what do you want to achieve? Are you doing it because you want to motivate people? Are you doing it because you want others to replicate the same thing? Be clear in your own mind of what you want to achieve by giving that feedback. When you go and give feedback, make sure that you do it within a timely manner. And by that, I mean, don't wait weeks to go and give somebody feedback. Go and give it there and then. Otherwise, it's really, really hard for them to relate to. And try to be honest, balancing positives and negatives. So you know the sandwich technique. It's something we talk about all the time. You give a positive and then you can put something in that's not so positive or some constructive feedback and then end on a positive. But do so in an honest manner. Something else at the moment we're probably doing a lot of at the moment is receiving feedback. It's important that we're open to feedback. It's important that people feel they can come and talk to us. And sometimes it may be good and sometimes it may be perhaps not so positive, but it's still important that we hear that. So when you're taking feedback, it's important that if you haven't understood the feedback that you're being given, that you ask for clarification. When somebody gives it to you, you need to stay calm, even if it's quite emotive. It's really important that no matter how you're feeling on the inside, that the outside appears very calm and in control. Don't try and justify what they're saying. Sit back and let them talk to you, because if you start to say, oh, but you know, I was doing, it actually stops you from hearing what's being said, and that's quite important. When somebody's coming to give you feedback, make sure you have eye contact with them. And that doesn't mean staring at them, that means having friendly eye contact and that you're taking time to acknowledge what they're saying to you. Often actively listening as well, kind of once there's an opportunity to replay back to them what you've heard them say. If they're giving constructive criticism, keep in mind that if they're not saying something positive, it might be actually very stressful for them to come and tell you this. So again, as they're doing so, it's really important that you make sure that your body language is very relaxed and calm. And I know that inside, if you could be screaming, but on the outside, you know, it's important that you are in control and that you are calm in accepting it. Just by accepting feedback doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It means that you've listened to them and you've acknowledged that you have listened to them. Another important area is giving praise. I think at the moment this is really, really important, again, for team morale. If you're going to give praise, it really does need to be specific and not general. Oh, isn't it wonderful the way that you've done this? You need to be really, really measured in what you're saying to people. And you need to make sure that you acknowledge lots and lots of people within your team, not just the same person time to time. Make sure that you share successes of everybody and that you shout about everybody's successes. Be comfortable using, I really like the way you've done this. The word I makes a huge difference because you're owning that praise. You're saying, this is coming from me. And don't be begrudging of the feedback you give. It's better to not give praise at all than to kind of grudge the praise that you're giving. And you never know, at the moment, you may even receive praise. I know that we've had quite a lot of parents feeding back at the moment who are really, really impressed by the way that the early years is being managed here. And when people come and praise you, it's really important that you accept that praise and that you kind of appreciate them for giving you it, because often we hear all the bad things. And when somebody comes to tell you something good, it really does make your day. So tell them that you're really appreciating the fact that they've taken time to come and give you that praise. Try not to make them feel uncomfortable on it. And one way of doing that is by dismissing it and saying, oh, it was nothing. It was obviously something for them to come and talk to you about it. So by dismissing them, you've just said, please don't come and tell me praise again. So again, being really careful on that. And make sure that, again, when they give you praise, they're specific. Okay, what exactly was it you like? Can you tell me, so that we can make sure that we can do more of it, or we can share it amongst our team, so that people, again, get very, very specific feedback. So as we come to an end this evening, the final thing I want you to really think about, and this is something I think more and more we need to reflect on, is, are you a firefighter? When I say firefight, every day do you go in and deal with problem after problem after problem? Are you a reactive leader? Do you lack the planning that should be in place to make sure that your setting runs smoothly? Is it just a problem after a problem? If it is, then perhaps you need to take a step back and look at how you could be more proactive in managing your settings. Is it down perhaps to communication? Because often when we firefight, it is really down to poor communication within our settings, and people not knowing what they should be doing and when they should be doing it. Once you've identified actually what the problem is, where the causes of that firefighting, it'll actually help you pinpoint what you need to do to make the changes. Sometimes it could be something like your team are too reliant upon you as the leader to give them solutions. So instead of even trying to solve the problem for themselves, whenever they have a problem, they just come to you. If it's something like that, are you able to start having coaching conversations with them, so that you actually put the emphasis back on them to try and manage situations for themselves? Coaching conversations really are a good way of giving more independence to your team. So when they come to your problem, okay, what do you suggest we could do as a solution here? What would you give me as guidance? If you were in my shoes, what would you do? And get them to slowly start to think for themselves. I think at the moment, again, that's really, really important skill for our teams to have, so that some of the smaller problems they're managing independently of us. So some final thoughts for you this evening. Identify the type of person you wish to be in a leadership role. We've looked at lots of different styles tonight, and it's a case of identifying what works for you. What do you think is best for your setting? Think about the vision that you want to have and how you want to get there. A huge takeaway, I think, for everybody is that you need to be reflective. We need to always be looking at what we can do differently and how we can do things better for the children in our settings, for our staff teams, for the families that we work with, and indeed for the government, because we're always looking at ways that we can drive forward the quality of early years within the UAE. Please don't feel that you always have to have the answer, because we can't always have the answers, and that's not what a leader is. But do take the time to go and see if you can help that person find the answer, or go and find the answer and then come back to them and share with them. It is perfectly acceptable for you to say no. There are going to be times when saying no is the best option. And when that's the case, you just need to go ahead and do it. A huge belief for me is that the team is everything to us, and the team of staff that we have in place is really important. And they make or break the setting that we have. So it's important that we do recognise and appreciate the people that we have in our team, and that we support them to do the job that they do. And a lot of that at the moment is about giving them feedback, encouraging them, keeping them going, motivating them. And my final point for this evening, and as I say, I know it's super hard to do, but please take time out for your own well-being and make sure that you have a balance at the moment of personal time, as well as also working in an early years setting and supporting your teams, families and children. So that is all I have to tell you tonight, but I'm now available for questions. So if anybody has any questions, I will do my best to answer them if I know the answer.
Before we go to the question and answers, I would like to remind everyone that this is an ongoing weekly training, and we have different topics to cover. So if you'd visit kindery.ae, thank you, Lara. If you'd visit kindery.ae, you could go and book for the other sessions. Starting next week, we'll also be having certain sessions in Arabic. So for anybody who might be interested in the sessions and they prefer the language in Arabic, we can. Lara, we do have a question from Kinda. I think this is a very interesting one. Can I ask Lara, as a successful leader, which type she thinks is best?
Kinder, I think you need to be a bit of everything sometimes. My strong belief is that there are occasions where you have to be an autocratic leader. There are times when you need to take a more laid-back approach and be a laissez-faire. One thing I say quite a lot at the moment is knowing when to pick your battles, and that really is very much a laid-back kind of leadership style. Do you need to take every battle? Probably not at the moment. So again, taking time out. So I think you need to be a combination of all of them. And I think depending on the people that you're dealing with and the situation that you're dealing with, that's why I think it's important that you reflect on leadership style so that you can appreciate when you need to use each and every one, and you can come forward and be that right person with that right style at the right time. So not a clear answer, a bit of a vague one, but I do truly, truly believe that at some point you're going to have to use every leadership style. That looks to be...
Yeah, either your session was super amazing, Lara, where people don't have any questions.
Don't say anything else, Rafi. Don't say it. Don't say it. So yeah, there's lots, and there's lots to do, and it's a huge thing. Who is better, the leader or the manager, in your opinion? Again, it's going to not perhaps be the answer you're wanting. It's not a confirmed answer, but I think every leader has to be a manager at some point as well. There comes a point in every day where a situation just needs to be managed, and you go ahead and do it. And it's not necessarily about being inspirational when you do it. It's just getting the job done. Very, very much, you have to have both hats on throughout the day. So just think about it. Again, decide when you need which one and wear it accordingly. Wow, it's quiet, Rafi.
No, we did get another question.
How to develop your leadership role? Is there any resources you can share? There's so many things out there, and there's so much reading you can do. Educational leadership is a huge topic. I would say do lots of reading. There's lots and lots of people. If you type in early years educational leadership, you'll find so many things. And again, it's a case of working out what bits you can use and what bits you can't. And there's always CPD going on. Keep your eyes open for any CPD opportunities. But I think on this one, reading is really important so that you can identify what works for you. And talking to other leaders, talking to other nursery leaders. I think at the moment, a lot of us have found strength in talking to people that do the same job that we do. And I think that's helped develop our leadership styles and the way that we do our roles. Am I missing anything else, Rafi?
No, I think we're good. Nicola, I hope your audio issues were sorted. And I think she'll be our star trainee because she's attended 2 of our trainings, so that's 100% attendance. So thank you, Nicola, for that.
Wow, I think that's impressive. Will new training topics be released on the Kindersley website for us to sign up to? Yes, they will. Next week, I believe it is behavior management, which will be at 11 o'clock in English and 2 o'clock in Arabic. And then I believe it's science, technology, engineering, and maths at 6 p.m. in English and 8 p.m. in Arabic. But if you have a look, the page that's on your website, the page that's on your screen, sorry, is a screenshot from the Kindersley website, which is also on your screen. And it gives you an overview of what's coming up, and you'll be able to book everything on there. We have a good 4 or 5 weeks of topics coming up. So you've got lots of, and some of them are really, really fantastic. We've got stuff on creativity. We've got things on SEN. So there really is a nice, diverse program coming. So it really is a big thank you to people at ECE and ADEC. Have I missed anybody, Rafi?
And Sharjah Education Council.
I knew I'd forgotten somebody. Sharjah Education Council. It really is a massive thanks to them for putting this on. It really is really good at the moment that we have opportunities like this available to us. Hang on, we've got another possibility. Is there a possibility the nursery will collapse if the leadership and management is controlling all their team and staff? That is a huge question to answer. I think leadership and management makes and breaks nurseries. It depends on why they're controlling their staff. I think that problem is a bit too difficult for me to answer on this this kind of a call, but I do think that, you know, there are ways and ways of doing things. And I think sometimes the team does need you to take control of the situation and move it on. And other times, again, it's just knowing which style you need to implement when. So you need to know a lot more than that to be able to give you a good answer, I think, for there.
Just to reply to Sunita and I think some of the other participants who missed our morning session, all sessions will be uploaded on our website in our resource section with the presentation and any links and any resources that are available you could use. I think we can get them all up by Monday, and we'll also share a link to the resource page with the certificates.
Amazing. Somebody else has written, what does it mean to be a leader in early childhood education? I think that means that you need to be somebody that motivates and inspires, has a really good sense of humour, because often that helps you get through an awful lot, and has a vision for the setting. So I think there's lots of potential for people to be leaders in settings. It doesn't just mean the person that's in control at the top. I think there's opportunities for class teachers to take on leadership within their classrooms. So, you know, as long as you're inspiring and motivating, there's huge opportunities there always. I don't know if I've missed any others. How to respond when you've been discouraged by the leader? I would actually go and have an honest conversation with somebody and say to them, you know, as somebody that manages settings myself, I would appreciate it if somebody came and said to me, look, I'm really sorry, I actually found it quite discouraging. Can we have a chat? So go and have a conversation with the person and see how they can help you move things forward and be a bit more supportive, and they may have feedback for you. So if you're going to start that conversation, I think you need to be open that feedback can come both ways. So yeah, that would be there. Can you give me advice? A new leader entering a position in a challenging time. I think honestly, it's very difficult to go into early years as a leadership role at the moment, just because so much is changing all the time and just because there's such huge expectations from so many people. So I think the best thing you can do is give yourself time, take a step back. And like we say, you can say no, and Rome wasn't built in a day, so you can't expect to achieve everything straight away. But it is important that you do kind of take a step back and think about what's important and prioritize what you feel you need to do first, and take it from there and do each step well, and see where it takes you. But not an easy thing to do at the moment, not at all.
I also believe that any leader or manager who can at this point and during these times, the pandemic, survive this, and I think they'll flourish more in the future, because then there'll be nothing they can't handle.
I do think, having been in education for more than 20 years, quite a few years, I'm not going to tell you exactly how many, I think this has probably been the hardest time I've ever had in my career. I hope never to encounter anything like it again. It's taken a lot of strength emotionally, it's taken a lot of strength kind of from a feelings and a social perspective, and the way that we interact with our teams. It really is extremely challenging. So I think you do need to give yourself a pat on the back, and I think you do need to give yourself space and time, because you're processing everything at the moment. And there's like a huge magnifying glass on everything that we do. And we're being watched by parents, and we're being watched by our staff team, and everybody's kind of checking what we're doing. So it really is challenging for us. Have I got time for one more question, Rafi? I've just seen one pop in at the bottom of, there's lots more. Pop in at the bottom of my screen. How do you handle it if a member is resisting your leadership style? Then you need to change what you're doing, because usually it says more about you as the leader than it does about them. You've obviously not tuned into what they need from you. So I think that's hugely important as well.
Okay, I think we're running a little bit out of time, but I just want to inform everyone who's been asking questions about if there's going to be assessments. Now, for these topics, there's not going to be an individual assessment. However, there will be an assessment at the end of all the sessions to be able to qualify you to get a cash endorsed certificate. So you will get certificates for attending each session, but in order to get the cash certificate, you will need to complete an assessment after all the sessions are complete. But I do have a small favor to ask. We are going to be including a survey, a small questionnaire with the email, the certificate. And I'd appreciate it if everybody could fill it up and just tell us how you felt before the session and how you felt after the session. How, did it really benefit you? Did you learn something new? And this data will help us to convince and to request the relevant authorities, whether it's MOE, whichever licensing authority follow, to allow us to do more trainings for everyone. And I think that is it for this evening. Thank you very much for everyone joining us. Lara, thank you very much. And
thank you,
we'll see
Rafi.
next
Thank you,
Saturday.
everybody.
Good night.
Have a good evening, everybody. Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.